next year.
Okay.
We've got Jessica here who's going to talk about Rozzy Learning Company. They presented here really early in your journey, about a year and a half ago, I think, in the fall of 16. And since then they've done Capital Innovators and all sorts of other fabulous things. So they're back to give us an update on what they're up to these days. So if you want to stand in between the computer and the banner, you'll be in frame. All right, take it away.
Schools are not preparing students for their future careers. 75% of high school students do not know their career options when they graduate. And that's why I started Rozzy Learning Company. We at Rozzy Learning are an education platform that brings career readiness to the youngest learners. So students are going through school knowing their career options and being prepared when they eventually graduate high school. Around the world, schools, companies, and organizations have begun to realize that career preparation for students is essential to success. In the US alone, 90% of states have career readiness standards that begin in kindergarten. That's right, age 6, kids should start learning about careers. And in China and India alone, there are large markets for educational content that relate to career readiness. The problem is that there's no provider of career readiness content for elementary school, and that's where we come in. Our programs provide career readiness content that's age appropriate through a series of hands-on lessons, videos, and other content that seamlessly integrate careers into the classroom. We have multiple product lines. The first is our career product focused on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. This program is used across the country in over 500 schools to date by teachers and schools who know the importance of teaching kids about careers from the start. We're also going to be launching our next career line that focuses on social studies related careers. So that relates to civics, history, government, and economics. That program will be used in social studies classrooms around the country starting in the fall. So how does it work from a money standpoint? Schools, teachers, and districts purchase yearly subscriptions to access our platform, which has all of this different content focused on career readiness. So the STEM product line and eventually the social studies product line. Schools pay an average fee of around $1,200 per year, and districts average $10,000 or more, depending on the size of the district. For the larger district deals, we submit bids for when schools have released that they're needing content related to career readiness. So in terms of our traction so far, we've been selling for 18 months and have made some great progress so far. In terms of our geographic distribution, we currently sell to schools in over 35 states, and we have, well, now that's a little outdated. Now we have around 2,000 teachers using our platform, and we also had a 100% renewal rate from our schools who renewed last year. That's right, 100% of the schools purchased a second year using our platform. Thank you. We also generated $160,000 in 18 months with a 90% gross profit. In the ed tech space, most companies are pre-revenue for the first 3 years, so we've made significant headway in having a cash flow positive company and generating revenue. We've also generated and established multiple partnerships. First, we work with Capital Innovators, a leading accelerator here in St. Louis, and we've partnered with them to launch an upcoming product line in 2019 that focuses on business and entrepreneurship related careers. So we'll be using them and their network to help spread the awareness of teaching about business and entrepreneurship related careers. We also have a partnership with Head Start, the leading early childhood provider for preschools across the country. They have 40,000 locations around the country, and we have solidified a partnership with them to be their exclusive provider of career readiness content for preschools. We also have a partnership with Fast Track Kids, a leading international franchise with over 400 locations worldwide, we'll be translating our program this year into Romanian, Korean, as well as other languages for all of the international clients that are looking to bring career readiness to preschool. Additionally, we've already begun selling into major school districts as well as after-school organizations and programs like Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs. In terms of our competitors are in a couple of different spaces. The first are competitors that provide STEM-related content, but the content is just too expensive. These programs average more than $10,000 per school, and it's just not affordable and sustainable long-term. The second are STEM-related programs and career readiness programs that require kits and technology. You can imagine if you're a small school in rural South Dakota, you just don't have access or the resources to have these kits being shipped every week to service your 10,000 students in this rural area who are coming from all over the state. This is an example of a client we work with who want affordable products, but not having all of the ancillary materials that most companies will sell them. And the third are companies with no career connection. So they're teaching about STEM and social studies content, but they're not bringing in any careers. So in turn, students are just learning key content, but not really understanding what the purpose is. So you can remember back to when you were in school and used to say, why am I learning this? The purpose is to be set up for your future career, and every career relates back to that content. Politicians relate back to history and relate back to government. An anthropologist studies culture. Every topic that students are learning in school relates to a real world career, and we want students to be learning about that. So where do we come in for our unique model? The first is that we are career focused. Every lesson focuses on a career, even for preschoolers. They're learning about urban planners, engineers, marine biologists, and eventually with our social studies program, they'll be learning about politicians, entrepreneurs, anthropologists, bloggers, really any career that you can think of. The second is that our products are affordable. We are the only provider that prices under $1,000 per school, which makes it very affordable, especially for schools with tight budgets these days. And with the upcoming political change in the climate related to education, budgets are going to be cut even further in education, and we are going to become the leading provider of affordable programs. Because our products are affordable, we have an extremely quick sales cycle. On average, ed tech companies spend about 6 months closing a deal with a school district. Our sales cycle ranges from one 15-minute call to one in-person meeting, and schools will sign up. This allows for a very expandable business model and to really get to scale, because we do not need to send sales reps in all over the country to spend multiple meetings over a 6-month period to secure a deal. Ours is a simple phone call, and schools understand the value and are signing up right away. In terms of the market worldwide and in the US, the ed tech market is a $7 billion market nationally and a $40 billion market internationally. And both of these markets are prime for career readiness programs. In terms of the team, I am a former teacher and curriculum writer at another top ed tech company before I started Rozzy Learning. My partner Allison is the head of operations and is a former researcher and has managed multi-million-dollar grants and is an excellent operations manager. And Judy Sindicuse, who's also the CEO of Capital Innovators, leads all of our business development. So between the education side of our team and the business side of our team, we have a very well-rounded company in the education space. So join us in helping prepare the workforce for tomorrow and bringing career readiness to the youngest learners. Thank you.
All right. Wow, amazing traction since your career last.
I know, right?
All because you presented a woman in cups. So
Absolutely.
All right. Who has the first question for Jessica? You guys even got a second round of coffee. You should be wide awake and full of questions. All right, don't depress us this time.
I love Rozzy. I love what you guys are doing. My career in the Air Force was all education training management. I get like taking people and sort of putting a vision to them of what they want to do or how they're going to do it. At the same time, I'm a parent, and I feel like, you know, one of my number one responsibilities as a parent is to like guide my kids toward a career that they're going to enjoy and thrive in. And I know that's missing from schools and the programs. So I guess you talked about marketing to the schools and getting into the school. How about the parents and like what's the lead into actual parents who are going to drive their kids and sort of hold them accountable to what they're learning in these programs at schools?
Sure, that's a great question. There are two parts to the answer. First is we go through the schools to access the parents. And by that, I mean we work with schools to advocate that they are doing career readiness so their parents know. So we host webinars for the administrators each month about how to talk with the parents about these programs that you're doing, from planning an event for parents to attend, sending home newsletters. So we work with schools to help talk about it with their parents. But then in 2019, we'll be releasing a consumer line of products that mirror our programs for schools. So individual parents can buy magazines, activity books, and other resources to teach their kids about careers.
Nothing like swag to push, you know, like you guys start off with your book, right? That sort of was
Yes,
the analog version of.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did have a start with a children's book.
Right. Another question? Any questions?
Can you talk a little bit more about the lack of having kind of career readiness conversations early on? Is there like measurable impact
Yes.
later? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So research shows that career readiness is important in early childhood and elementary for a variety of reasons. First, children's identity, in terms of how they feel about themselves and their aspirations, are formed before the age of 13. So it's important to introduce careers before the age of 13, and research has shown that when you do that, students are more likely to feel confident and able to pursue the career options that they're interested in. Second relates to the role of gender and race. So students who are, and SES background, socioeconomic background, students who are African American or low income are more likely to be pipelined into low paying jobs. And research has shown that exposing them to a wide variety of career options from the beginning is linked to greater success later on. So now we work with a variety of organizations who have it as their mission to introduce students who are at risk of being pipelined into low paying jobs. We're actually presenting at the Women's Conference on Friday as part of their catapult competition, and we'll be focusing on how women and minorities are pipelined into these jobs.
That was a perfect segue into the question I had for you, which is how do you ensure that your content doesn't reinforce things like, you know, stereotype threat and so on and so forth?
Sure. So our team has a research background. Allison and I were both in PhD programs, and this is actually what I studied. So from a personal level, this is important. All of our programs, the characters that are presented, so either in the books or when the children are seeing characters on the screen, are all diverse characters. So that's extremely important to us. We're also going to be conducting our own line of research on the efficacy of our program in 2019. But until then, we have a well-rounded team of writers who understand the importance of exposing children to careers in ways that are appropriate. So for instance, in a preschool program, they meet Umar, the urban planner, Eli, the plant scientist, and Patricia, the paleontologist. These children come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and it's talked about in their story, and represent different ethnicities.
In terms of delivering your service to a school district, is there much difference between a large school district and a very small, say, private school in terms of your cost, time and energy to do that? And then is there a minimum number of students where it only makes sense for you financially to go after a certain size school district?
Great question. So the best part about having an online platform is that our costs are extremely low and they are controlled, which is why our gross profits are so high. We work with schools that literally have 10 kids to schools that have 5,000 kids. It doesn't matter, mostly because the platform, we like to say, takes care of itself. Teachers do not need much help. They have the support they need through the platform, and there's not much customer service needed. We anticipate hiring a head of what we call teacher support next year for $50,000, and they will manage about 1,000 schools to ensure that their contracts are renewed. But the idea is this is a scalable model because any type of school and different size can buy. Those larger school districts, that process is streamlined because those are bids that they put out that they need content for, and the price is built in of what our time would cost. So we don't have extra costs outside of that because I've already built it into the contract of what our employees will need to do in terms of onboarding or training for a larger school district.
I would just add too, and I'm excited about what you're doing. Being the parent, my kids are 17 through 23, and they have the opposite now, where they're feeling the pressure to know what they want to do with their lives because it wasn't built in for all 12 years. It hit them like a ton of bricks somewhere in the middle of high school, and depending on their general personality, whether they're more stressed about it by the beginning of high school or towards the end of college, they still are really freaked out. But I think what you're doing is so. If it's just a part of the dialogue starting in kindergarten, it's much more of an organic, I think, beneficial process than the freak out that happens when they're 16.
Exactly, there's no freak out is the point, because everyone knows, has been exposed to career options from a young age in an age-appropriate way. So the youngest learners are doing activities that the professionals would do. So they might build a bridge like a transportation engineer, and then when they get into upper elementary school, they're learning about how those professionals got into their careers. So what types of programs they went into for college, what types of training they needed, and then in middle school they learn about how these professionals build resumes, who they network with. So over time it becomes more complex. The preschoolers are not in cubicles is the point. It's age appropriate.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing as well. I wanted to just give you a couple ideas possibly to approach some folks, possibly parent as teachers that have modules that also coincide and would be very beneficial as connection with both of you all, parents to be teachers, and of course they're nationwide and they have a local office here.
Yeah.
And then to find out if you had thought about approaching the independent schools. They have a coalition to the independent schools in St. Louis, not like public schools, but most of the private schools, because they also they try to engage the students with those types of things, but they do it themselves. They have no idea how to do that. And
to be honest, Missouri is a tad behind the rest of the country. We don't do a ton of business in Missouri. We're more on the coast, and we're happy to partner with Missouri-based organizations, but the sales speak elsewhere, unfortunately.
I'm sure.
Hi. Also love what you're doing. Great presentation. My question is about your rural South Dakota school district. How did you guys get engaged with them? And I guess what I'm wondering is, how do you plan on engaging, rural America, specifically the middle part of America? You mentioned the coasts are, a little easier for you. Can you speak a little more towards your marketing plan?
We have a boots on the ground technique, so we're on the phone all day long, talking to school districts, setting up partnerships. So one of our target partnerships will be Rural Schools of America. They have a very large organization. We also create hotspots, which is a marketing technique we're using, where when we have a couple of schools in an area, we reach out to all the other surrounding schools with what we call an initiative for affordable programming. So we also send out very large email lists, and we get about, on a 20,000 school email list, we'll get a 35% open rate on the first email, which is very high. And we can drip them for about 6 or 7 emails before we send them a different email with a different topic. So we sent out one yesterday for rural schools, and the phone was ringing off the hook all day long. So it's pretty successful. I would say in terms of sales, our niche market are rural schools, small school districts with under 3 elementary schools, preschools, and independent schools they have private paying parents, but they don't have large budgets. So Catholic schools and other faith-based schools, and there are lots of them in the country. We will be expanding this year, though, to reach middle and larger school districts because we realize that's the scalable model for EdTech.
Can you talk a little bit more about exactly what it feels like in the classroom to use your product? So if there's things that they're, if they're just watching something, all they need is an internet connection and boom, there's Rozzy, or if there's physical stuff too? Or-
Sure. So a teacher logs onto an online platform and selects what lesson they want to do. It could be predetermined by the school, or they could choose themselves. So they might log on and decide with their kindergarten class they want to do an urban planning lesson related to building water pipelines in a rural area. So the teacher would introduce the children to what an urban planner does, show different pictures or videos that we provide, and then do a hands-on activity where the children work in groups to build a miniature water pipeline using recycled materials. So again, no kids are required. We use all natural and common materials. So that's an example of what a lesson would look like. And when they're older, a middle school lesson, they might be designing a prototype for a drone that would track elephant poaching in Africa as a wildlife specialist. Yes.
Not your mother's elementary school.
No, it's different.
That's really
Times are
awesome.
changing.
Other questions for Jessica?
We are also opening a seed round starting in April, and we're excited to connect with potential investors to scale our product lines and take off even at a faster pace than we are now.
All right. Well, and that reminds me, and also reminds me that I forgot to ask the big question to Kyla before she stepped away. So to close out this fabulously jam-packed, wonderful edition of 1 Million Cups, the co-working space is good to us. It seems like every time they apologize for sticking us over here, and every time we're over here, it feels cozy and cool, and
It is cozy.
And we disrupt people. They pretend that we're not here with their headphones on, but we are. And so, what can the community do for you? Anything you didn't cover that you need from your fabulous?
Sure. So I guess two things. One, we always love connections to schools. So if your children are going to schools, advocating to your principal that you'd be interested in having them explore this program. Two is we're opening a seed round, and we anticipate mostly angel investors because our round is smaller than what typical Series A ed tech funds are investing in. So our round will be around $300,000. So this will be a great level for angel investors before we do a Series A. So we'll be looking for connections to people interested in learning more about Rozzy and our growth trajectory.
And Kyla, want to answer that question?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you didn't cover?
We actually really like being connected to financial firms who give advice to companies about how to save money. So we've started working with financial firms to share how we are helping companies save money, and in turn are being presented to their clients to help their companies save money. So that's big for us. And also any kind of, as you can see, there's, like I mentioned before, we have a huge educational hurdle to just teach the general public about what's going on in healthcare. We love educational opportunities to talk about how people in their own personal lives can find more valuable care and save money. And so anytime you would like us to speak on that topic, we would love to.
Get with Rozzy and do a kindergarten lesson on how to talk to your doctor.
We actually are going to be doing a health literacy related series. At some point.
Synergy here at 1 Million Cups. All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody, and our listeners. And hang out, grab some more coffee, and come back next week for Corvus Robotics. And Luis from SBTDC is doing office hours as per usual. Are you hanging out over there, right on the other side of the main door on the 5th floor? And thanks, guys, for coming. See you next week. Yay.